Hey, folks, welcome to Wake Up Charlotte to Go. We are following breaking news this morning, a busier morning than usual here. The FAA reporting an outage nationwide, and as of the last 10 minutes saying that they are pausing all departing flights until 9 this morning.
Yeah, this came down during our broadcast saying flights were grounded, and so we were like, this is major. I mean, we don't think something like this has happened since 9/11. People were tweeting us, but flights are, still in the air. And so, yes, those flights were still in the air. And Tom Costello said on the Today Show that a few flights were being allowed to leave. It was something to do with this software where they can detect, like, if a rocket launch is happening, if the military is doing something. But now the FAA just releasing that they are stopping all domestic flights from taking off till at least 9 a.m.
9. But admittedly, folks, this is a fluid situation and things are changing. So we do have Richard Devane. He's live on the ground at Charlotte Douglas, seeing how things are unfolding there. Richard, tell us, how are things unfolding the way you're seeing them and witnessing versus what we're hearing from, say, the FAA?
Yeah, well, first of all, passengers are just getting notifications on their cell phones as they come to the airport. Because if you look right here at Spirit Airlines, they say that their flight, actually the 8:10 flight, is supposed to be on time according to that. It's the same on the other departure and arrival boards. But when you actually speak to the airline representatives, they'll say, no, that's not the case. They're now being delayed. A lot of folks, as I said, are getting alerted on their cell phones. Not a heavy day here at Charlotte Douglas International, but as you can well imagine, these flights, especially this first bank, as we're called, this first day, the airports send out their flights and arrivals on banks. This is the first bank of the morning. A lot of these first banks flights are going to be delayed. That means for passengers, they're going to have issues, especially trying to get connecting flights and the such. So it's going to cause a ripple effect, as you can well imagine, because we're not just talking about a situation like in the holidays when you had certain pockets of certain areas like Charlotte or Dallas or something else out. You have all around the country flights now paused. That's the word the FAA is using. Paused. That is going to cause some headaches for passengers. On my way into Charlotte Douglas, I did see one flight taking off as I arrived. I also saw a Spirit flight landing as I came in, but you just explained that situation. That was a little after 6 when we first came here. But of course, as you can well imagine, passengers say they're doing the best they can to try to deal with this. Good morning. Trying to do the best they can to deal with this situation. Of course, hoping to get to their destinations. Folks who have taken those early morning flights, which usually are the good ones to take, it gets you there a little bit earlier, now having to wait. One lady is trying to go out of the country. She's heading down to Miami today. She said she gave herself a day. Now she's happy that she did so because she's trying to catch one of those flights out of the country from Miami tomorrow. Of course, that is the situation right here. As you can see, still not really busy, but of course those passengers here who are trying to catch those early flights are going to have to deal with these delays. Of course, we'll continue to keep you posted whenever these flights start taking off. That is the situation right here at Charlotte Douglas, guys.
So, Richard, we've had, people messaging us saying, oh, I'm seeing this online. It looks like my flight's on time. And you just said some of those boards still say on-time flights. But what you're saying is that's probably not the case for most of those travelers.
Absolutely correct. I can tell you this, when I got to the airport, all the signs, arrivals and departures, well, let's deal with the departures, we're saying they're on time departures, on-time departures. I did speak with some airline officials from different airlines, and they all told me the same thing. No, we know about this ground pause, if you will. That's the word we're using now. We do know about this situation, and it is going to cause an effect. Passengers' flights will be delayed, so they knew, and then I guess they were waiting for folks to get to the gates or maybe get a notification on their apps. But if you walk in here and you look at the big boards, as we've seen all day, the folks do that. They're seeing that their flights are on time, they're scheduled to depart on time, but that is not the case.
So, Richard, for folks at home who are watching this who might have a flight or a family member with a flight, if the online information is not up to date and not accurate, what are they being recommended to do? Just go to the airport, show up, and hope for the best?
No, I would never tell someone just to show up at the airport and just hope for the best. That might not be the best idea. I would say to look on the apps, because the apps have been updating people. The apps, not these boards that are here, these big screens in the airport, is the best thing to do is to use the app, go online and check if you can. And if you have a flight that's scheduled for 9 o'clock, or before 9 o'clock, you know that flight is delayed. And it's probably going to have an effect, especially if you're flying a later flight. There may be situations where they're trying to get the folks out in those earlier flights. So that could affect things because, as you know, limited runway space, limited amount of flights can take off and land. So that's going to have an effect throughout the day. So the best thing, stay on your phones, pay attention to those apps, and they'll probably help you get your way through here. This situation today, which is going to probably get a lot worse than it is right now.
Yeah.
You know, all of us were talking too, Richard and I, we all covered it, 9/11. This many flights we do not believe have been affected, not able to take off since then.
Over 20 years. It's crazy to think.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I was in Dallas when all of that happened, so I was able to speak to people who, again, American Airlines Comm Center was right there located in Dallas, and we heard the word that was happening. It was amazing because of what we knew was going to happen around the country, ultimately affecting flights even around the world. This situation is hopefully not going to be as bad, but when you stop all flights throughout the country, it is going to have an effect on passengers. Now, I did speak to one pilot, this morning, who said that there was the same situation, a kind of the updating system that he gets from his for the pilots with his particular airline did go down a couple of years ago, but that just caused his flights, the flights on his airlines, to have to pause for a while until they could get the system fixed. A lot of the pilots that we spoke to, about 6 this morning, said hopefully they'll get this fixed soon, so they can get off the ground and get these passengers to their destinations.
All right, Richard, we know you got have folks you want to talk to there at the airport. We'll check back in with you coming up a little bit later over on WCNC Charlotte on the broadcast. You know, they're calling this a system outage, very different than 9/11. The results, though, it doesn't really matter because it's having the impact of grounding or pausing so many flights out there. I think possibly the only glimmer of good news is this is happening on a Wednesday in the middle of January and not a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. Had it been a week or 2 weeks ago, this would have been
more than the nightmare it was.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you've heard domino effect, this is the definition of that domino effect, because flights here will affect international flights. Flights all over the world will be affected by this ground stoppage here in the United States.
You know, we were just talking during the broadcast about how, you know, they have backups for backups for backups. So I know a lot of people will want answers as to how did this happen? How do we prevent this from happening again? Does this make us vulnerable to... And is it just a glitch? You know, it's crazy.
It could have opened up a lot of holes that might be in the system, but no, the domino effect, trickle down effect, everything, delaying 2 hours connecting flights, everything's going to be mayhem. A lot of people aren't going to get to where they need to. But this news story this morning was interesting. It was the first that said all was grounded, and then we're hearing flights were taking off, and then some were landing. But now officially, again, to repeat ourselves, until 9 o'clock, the FAA is reporting that
all domestic
flights are going to be grounded.
With flights in the air, the flights had to land. Flights were ready to take off. They did, but now, I mean, you imagine on 9/11, the day after, when you drove around the air, did not see one plane in the sky. It was an eerie
situation,
and that's really the way it is right now across the air. The other problem is the influx of people to all the airports. Those who are arriving, thinking someone going to park, people picking them up. I mean, it's going to be a big, massive traffic jam.
A mess that we'll have to continue following throughout the day. Of course, the Today Show will have updates for you as well.
And we'll have updates as well throughout the Today Show, and then we'll see you back on the broadcast at 11:30 over on WCNC Charlotte. Have a great day, everybody.